Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to this Blitz chess postmortem video. This is a postmortem of my Blitz chess game number 139 where I was black. My opponent played e4 here, and I played c5, the Sicilian defense. So a very popular defense, as you can see by the number of moves, number of games in this position. I played d6, and the other main move here is knight c6, or e6, other main moves there. d4 and c takes. So this is a open Sicilian, and now I meant to play knight f6, which is the main move here, and I played knight to c6 instead. And if you let the chess engine settle down, you'll see actually this is still a playable move. The one downside is it does allow the move to pawn to c4. So after that's the Maroczy bind with the pawns on e4 and c4. But if you don't mind playing against that, this knight c6 here is actually a playable move. It's not like an opening blunder or anything. It's just not the most common way this is played. So my opponent played bishop c4 here, a bit of an unusual move, and then I get back into the main line by playing knight f6, and my opponent plays knight c3, and then I play e6. And so what we have here is the Fischer-Sozin attack against the classical Sicilian. Although my opponent doesn't continue in the Fischer-Sozin line. So the main move here would be, to continue with the Fischer-Sozin would be to move the bishop back to b3 and then to castle kingside. Those are the sort of characteristic moves. And black would typically play a6. And so this position can arise from the classical Sicilian with the two knights here, or from the Najdorf, because I could have played a6 before playing knight c6. And the Fischer-Sozin attack works against either of them. So, but my opponent didn't play that way. He played bishop e3, which is actually the most common move here. I played bishop e7, and then he played f3. So f3 maybe is a bit of a mistake. You see, up till now, white's maintained some slight opening advantage. But after the f3 move, it's pretty much an equal game. The reason why f3 is not considered a move here is it's not really necessary to keep the knight out of g4, because the queen is doing a fine job of guarding that square, and the bishop is blocked by this pawn on e6. So the knight's just not coming to g4, so there's no reason to play f3. Now f3 also has the idea of starting a pawn storm, but that can be started immediately. If you wanted to play g4 in this position, you could play it right away. You don't need to prepare it with f3. So for those reasons, this move is a bit slow. The normal moves here are queen e2 or bishop to b3. Queen e2 is interesting. It protects the bishop, and then bishop b3 just moves the bishop back to a square where it's safe. But as the bishop sits out here on c4, it's actually loose, and it is subject to a tempo gain at some point. Anyway, f3 was played. I played d5, and we're pretty much out of the opening book. He could have played bishop b3 here as well. So let's just look at the notation tab, and you'll see the position stays about even as we go about completing our development. I think these are all pretty logical moves. Both sides castle, and then I decide to exchange here. That was not strictly necessary, but I want to play b5 and then maybe b4, and I want to get my bishop on b7. And I don't necessarily want to be distracted by knight takes knight here at some point. So I go ahead and exchange first. The engine, after it has time to think about it, thinks a better move with a knight is knight to a5, which is an opportunity to exchange this knight for that light-squared bishop. So that's probably an interesting idea, because this bishop is a good attacking piece in this system. One thing, you should all try and keep in mind with the knight on d4 and the bishop on b3, they're ganging up on this e6 square, and there's often the possibility of sacrifices here. I've left my bishop back on c8 here to defend for that reason, but that was another reason for trading off this knight, so I didn't have to worry about those tactics. So he plays bishop takes, I go b5, and we're still in pretty much an even position, and my opponent starts his kingside attack. I finish my development, and then I throw in h6 here to slow down the pawn advance. I think it's a little bit dangerous to allow his pawn to get all the way to h6 and inflict some damage on my pawn structure. So this slows it down for a move or two, but he starts right in with g4. And now I need to move this knight out of the way so that I can prevent the move g5, which will mess up these pawns. So I went to h7. It looks like knight d7 is slightly preferable. I guess it's a more central position for the knight, so it's got more options besides but it does have the main idea, the same idea of defending this g4 square by unblocking the bishop. Okay, my opponent played king b1, and then I start. Oh, I play knight g5 first, queen e3, and then I start in with my counterplay on the king side with knight b4. I mean, with pawn to b4. And my opponent plays knight a4. So here I make a bit of a mistake. My next two moves are a bit imprecise, and white gets a pretty good game here. So queen c6 is what I played. I was worried about his pieces dropping in on this b6 square, which is firmly in white's control, and there's no good way to counteract it. The chess engine recommends ignoring it just by playing a5 and bishop to c6, or bishop c6 first. Bishop c6 is interesting because it does give a couple more squares for the queen. You'll see the queen is a little bit short of squares over here as we continue. I go queen c6, he goes knight b6, and then, oh, this was an instructive moment here. I assumed that my rook was under attack and I had to move it, but actually he can't really take, well, he can take the rook here, but it's not particularly good, so black can ignore it and play the move e5. And if he takes, then you can take the bishop, hitting the queen, and after the queen takes back, you can take here. Or he could have taken with the rook. And you can still take there. And you've got two pieces for the rook and a decent position, so slight edge for black there. So that was interesting. I was moving my rook when I could have spent that move on something more useful. So I play rook a b1, and now he's got an advantage here. And his best way to follow up with is with bishop a4. Notice that the knight is defending the bishop there, and my queen really only has one move, queen c7. And then he can play knight d7, forking my two pieces. So neat tactic there. Just get the queen in the way, and chase the queen out of the way, and get the knight to c7. So fortunately for me, he didn't see that. He played knight to c4. And I continue with d5, which turns out to be a mistake, although this is more complicated. It's not a simple tactic. But once again, this move knight a5 is annoying. I don't know why I said once again. This is the first time we've seen it. Okay, knight a5 here is harassing the queen. I guess that's what I meant. The queen is still a target to these minor pieces over here. So, and then knight takes b7, and then e takes d5. And I do maintain my pawn there, but then he can start pushing ahead with f4 and g5 or bishop e5. I think g5 is more thematic. So he gets a strong attack here. I've got, the material's even. I've got 3 pawns. He's got 3 and 3 and 3. But he's now steaming ahead with the attack. And this is looking pretty good. It's actually too dangerous for me to take this pawn. For example, pawn takes. He can just play h6 and ignore that. And let's see, I grab this pawn, being greedy. He takes here, and the numbers just go up and up. This pawn is defended by the bishop, and it's attacking my rook. If I move my rook out of the way, there's a mate in one with rook h8. Okay. Yeah, that's a dangerous pawn there. Okay, so backing up. This is the way for white to proceed with the attack. Now, there were better defenses along there, but you can see it's actually a pretty strong move, this knight a5. The knight a5 followed by taking on d5, or you can also take on d5 first and then play knight a5. You get into a similar kind of situation. So my opponent didn't play that way. It's actually a little tricky to figure all that out in a blitz game. There was a lot of calculation there. He played knight e5, which is a similar idea, harassing my queen, and but it doesn't hit the bishop over here, which is apparently key part of my defense. I go queen b5, and then he goes c4. So c4 is the actual mistake. He could still continue with this plan of trying to steamroll the king side with f4 and g5. Yeah, f4, knight takes e4. You know, I thought it was safe because I knew I had a way for my knight to escape, so I wasn't getting trapped. But now g5, and once again, I'm in danger over here on the king side. So very tense position here. And so so the move to play here was f4, and my opponent played c4 instead. And so now I'm out of danger. And we continue on with some slight edge for black up until this move here. Rook d2. Now rook d2 is still okay. Rook fe8. Rook hd1 was the mistake. So after the move, rook to e8, there's a threat on the knight. It's not a direct threat because it's defended twice and attacked twice, but there's a veiled threat from the black queen on b5 here, attacking through the pawn. So when I move the pawn out of the way, this knight is hanging, and the pawn move also attacks the queen and the bishop. So this is just a mistake. So I play d4 here, and there's no way to avoid it. He's going to lose a piece because basically he's got to do something about the threat on his queen, which means he has to take the pawn or move the queen. And no matter how he takes, he's losing this knight. So he took with the queen, I grabbed the knight, and then it's pretty much a winning game for me from this point forward. So I'll just go through the rest of the moves. It's mainly keeping my pieces active and avoiding getting mated. Right here, I could have traded queens. It probably would have been better. But he traded queens instead. And then a4, just a5, a4, just trying to break up his defense around the king and you know, put my rooks to good use. And trading rooks is okay for me in this endgame. And then this is a mistake. If he wanted to hold on and play, he needed to play the move rook to b5 to defend the pawn. This moving the pawn out of the way doesn't really defend it because there's a little check. Common endgame tactic with the rooks, so something to be alert on the watch out for in your endgames. Okay, so my opponent resigned at this game, and that's how it ended. At this point in the game, and that's how it ended. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Leave any comments you have in the section below, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.